Helena. Welcome to Can't Shovel Hurricanes. The podcast is made to touch all sorts of topics, from guns to taxes to traveling to real estate and education, which is our focus today. You'll tell us all about your space in this world. I'll tell you my perspective of the space in this world. And when we moved to South Florida, when we started our journey, we knew nothing about Boca. We knew nothing about South Florida. We didn't have family or friends that owned places. It was in conversation with a lot of other people. Ironically, from a real estate perspective, I was sending a lot of business down here because people were looking. But during COVID, it was like, boom, it was powder keg. And everybody was looking for an out, and they were looking to South Florida, which is what started our journey down here. But our kids went to a private Jewish day school in Toronto called Bialik. And we wanted to mimic that sort of experience. And we started researching. And Donna Klein not only came up consistently as we started having conversations with people, it was the overwhelming majority of people, and their kids were there for like the long haul, right? Which, if you're not happy with the education, you're not happy with the platform, you don't send your kids to private school. It's also, it could be a pricey venture over a long enough time horizon as well. But I look at it as an investment, and so does my wife and all the parents that we spoke to. But without knowing anything about Florida, we came for a tour of Donna Klein, and the first person we met was Hillary. And I could tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, she was the primary anchor reason why we decided to go with Donna Klein, outside of some other things that are really important. That was security and the guards and a bunch of other things. But I'm sure you have seen Donna Klein change. And are you also a transplant like everybody else to South Florida?
Absolutely.
Well, take us through that process.
Thank you, Ronan. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, thank you.
Such a treat. It's so wonderful to have your family as part of our community.
Thank you.
Really, really mean it. So yeah, I'm actually probably a triple transplant is what I would call it. So I actually am from South America. I was born in Colombia. I moved from Colombia to Connecticut when I was 10, and then moved to Boston to do my graduate school work. And that's where I met my husband. We started our family, and then we moved to Florida. And it was Donna Klein Jewish Academy that brought me to Florida 18 years ago with 3 very young children.
How old were they at the time?
They were 2, 4, and 6.
Oh, very similar to us.
Yes. And it was the ideal time to move. We
wow.
Yeah, we came down ready. We really were looking for that school that would ground our community, our friend group. And 18 years later, here we are.
It's amazing that you mentioned community. The entire space of the people we interact with now, I could say overwhelmingly came from the Donna Klein community, because people and the activities and the posts, like, they really rally around people, especially that, and you'll be able to speak to this, is that so many new families have come in over the last couple of years, and whether COVID was the trigger, I think it's definitely the reason. It's not the only reason that people came down, but the community that we have and the friends that we're making are all vis-a-vis Donna Klein. And community is like something that, not just a word that's thrown around, it's true.
Yeah. It's interesting. I look at Donna Klein. Most schools are more transactional, where you come in, you get an education. And I feel like it's the relational piece that Donna Klein has that really makes it the unique school that it is. It's about community. It's about, it's not just about the kids coming in and getting an education, but it's about the families really connecting and understanding each other and building a community and building their world around the school. That's a unique element to Donna
So
Klein.
did your kids go through like all the way through high school?
Yes, all 3 of them.
Did you feel like Donna Klein really prepared them for college and university?
100%.
Go, please.
No, so I think for all 3 of them, our son started in first grade, and our 2 little ones obviously started soon thereafter. Our son went to Dartmouth and was beyond prepared and got his master's and is now working in Boston with a phenomenal job, really surrounding himself with an incredible friend group and really making us beyond proud. Our middle one's about to graduate the University of Maryland. and with a business degree, also has a job lined up in Boston. And the little one is a few years behind and looking to do nursing. We'll see where she ends up. But it was Donna Klein that prepared all three of them. If you were to ask them directly, they would say that it was the relationships that they developed with their teachers that really helped them stand out in university, and for our son for his master's degree as well.
Do a lot of their social network and their friends are still ones that they made at school and they carried forward even though they went away and probably living in other places now?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were all just home for a wedding for a weekend, and they all saw all their friends when they were home, the ones that were local.
See, that's really amazing, especially for people like us. Like, we left a very comfortable environment. We left a support network. We left, grandparents and cousins and brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews. And the best part about children is that they don't lie. Yeah. My daughter, Chloe, is a very bright, sensitive girl who takes on the space around her very much, not too different from her mom, and had a really tough time with the transition, like an incredibly challenging time. Yeah. And I'd still say going through it, but it's different now. And one thing that was consistently good was that when she went to school, she went with a smile. When she left school, she left with a smile. And just now during Chagim, she dressed up as her teacher.
Oh, nice.
Can you imagine, of all the things that she could be, she was her teacher?
That's awesome.
That's something you don't teach a child. They organically, naturally, love the thing. To the teacher, that was the superhero.
Wow.
What does that tell you about the environment? So kids don't lie. For us as parents, if we didn't have that anchor within the school, I don't think we can make it, because it's hard enough as is with everything happening. And this is a choice that we make, so I'm not expecting anyone to feel sorry for me. But the fact that we have an environment that we can turn to, that we're comfortable with, that we know the kids are getting the best they possibly can is really incredible. And we got extremely lucky. But can you tell me a bit more about the philosophy of Donna Klein versus, maybe the public school system or other schools around, and what separates it?
Sure. So I think we're truly a product of its own. What really differentiates us is, I think we're talking about community, and I would say that is the first and foremost. I think we are a true community day school, that we have students that come from all denominations. We have Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Israelis for whom, our school is where they want to be because of our Zionism. We're very, very, very supportive of Israel. And I think it's the diversity that really makes us unique, both from a religious standpoint, but also families coming from all over the world, Canada, Australia, you name it.
Where have you seen the most people flock to Donna Klein?
So most are coming, as of recent, to New York and California.
Okay.
But South America, all over basically.
Right.
I actually was talking to my admissions director saying we need to put a map up from where our families come from. And I think we're going to have little pins everywhere all over the world, which is really cool. So we're working on that. But I would say the diversity that we have as a Jewish day school is really unique to Donna Klein Jewish Academy. I speak to lots of heads of school all over the country. And
specifically Jewish day schools? Jewish
day schools. So I have two very strong networks, one with Jewish day schools and another one with private schools. Okay. They're two very different animals. And I think we work closely together. And I think COVID really helped create lines of communication, for the purpose of really, how do you do this, right? We all walked into this, as private schools saying, especially in Florida, there were no guidelines, which was both wonderful and incredibly terrifying as a head of school.
Sure.
And that allowed me to really create really strong alliances with lots of day school heads all over the country. And we're still in touch. We're weekly for the Jewish day schools heads. We meet weekly. And then those in Florida, we see each other pretty often.
How many students are at Donna Klein right now?
We have 660 students right now. And
what was the growth like during COVID?
Yeah. So in the last 2.5 years, we have seen about 200 plus new students enter our school. I used to know every family, every kid, I really, really knew each family. And it's actually been both a curse and a blessing for me as head of school. I'm a very I like relationship building and I love getting to know my families. And it's been such an exponential growth that's actually been a difficult piece for me to try to get to know my families. My principals know them really, really well, thank God. And, but it's been over 200 new students in a couple of years, which is, historic for our school.
Do you have the capacity for more?
We have a capacity for some more. I would say our maximum probably will be at like 7, 10, as long as they come in the right ages. We do have some room right now, but not a lot of room.
So do you find that it's become a lot more competitive?
Yes.
In general, not just at Donna Klein, but like, can you talk to the landscape of what's education like in South Florida? Because, as you've seen the growth, other places have seen the growth. And I've heard in passing from other parents that it's competitive, but I really don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think ultimately if you have, for example, we have an incoming kindergarten class and we have 60 seats. And I think we already had 75 applicants. And this is early on. So by the end, we'll probably have 120 or so. So with 60 seats, as a school, it's both, I will have to say, it's a wonderful thing to be more selective, but at the same time, as a Jewish day school, I'd love to accept all 120 if they're mission appropriate.
What's mission appropriate, Mina? And that's something that I remember Hillary saying to us all the time. I remember what she had said, but I want to hear your take on mission appropriate. I'm sure it's in the same context, but clarify that to people.
Sure, absolutely. So for us, obviously, we're not just an educational institution. So educationally, we need to be able to know that we can meet the needs of our students. We actually have a very diverse group of learners at our school. We have highly, highly gifted students, and we also have students that need extra supports and may have learning disabilities. And we're very proud that we're able to offer an incredible program for all of those students. There reaches a point where we may not be able to offer an educationally sound program to a given student. And that's one reason why they may not be mission appropriate. Okay. And it's also, we're a community day school. We do have families that are Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, and, you across that, you see lots of other kinds of families. A community day school is going to look very different than a yeshiva, which is
what would you say the major differentiation between the two is? Is it the religion piece?
So it's the religion piece and it's the observance piece. We will always make sure that our observant families are comfortable, but our day is only 30% of our day is in Jewish studies.
Does the school have any students that are not Jewish?
So we typically do not accept non-Jewish students, but there will be those students that we have some families that are raising their children Jewish, and this is what they're hoping for their family. So right. it's on a case-by-case scenario, but it's basically a Jewish day school for Jewish students.
I understand. So one of the things that I remember Hillary talking about, and it doesn't apply to me yet, but in the senior years, you have some sort of programs where, and I don't know the terms yet because they're American terms. For us, it was like co-op for students where they get, I think she was explaining that you can get university level credits. And if you want to go the medical route or engineering or law, and, you kind of get to practice with. So can you explain that so I don't keep butchering and fumbling what I'm trying to get at? Because you know what you're talking about and I kind of don't.
Absolutely. It's actually, it's interesting so I'll give you kind of a quick backstory and then I'll get into your specific question. So
please.
So Donna Klein is 43 years old, but the high school is only just graduated its 20th graduating class.
Oh, so they started with little ones and worked their way up. Okay.
Yes. So the high school is the baby of the school. And the high school also, Bruce Pell, who's a great mentor and coach, said to us years ago when I was high school principal that a strong high school will help drive a strong Jewish day school. And it's been through the growth of our high school that's really allowed, I think, the school to grow and mature into where it is now, the school that you've picked for your child, which is your children, which is very different than the school that I had. When we started, the high school was in its infancy. Actually, there were 54 students at the time. And so it's through that growth. So I think its evolution it's been exciting to see the high school really become cream of the crop, like where we have a phenomenal program across the board. So that's to answer your specific question. So its AP offerings, advanced placement offerings are available to all of our families and students, which basically means that if a student is at that level, they can start to take courses where they can then test out of having to take college courses. So if you get a 4 or a 5 in the state schools, you don't have to take, let's say, an English course, so you can start at the 200 level courses in college. Unfortunately, the top tier schools do not allow that. So my son had to start all over with all the 100 level courses, but for the state schools.
But I'm sure his foundation was there, right?
Was 100% there. You need to have those in order to get into those schools.
Got it.
And then the signature programs that we offer. So we have a pre-med track where we have an affiliation with West Boca Medical Center as well as FAU's medical school. And our students are able to both do programming in the building and at Donna Klein, but they also get to go to the hospital and a college setting where they're learning from the experts.
And at what age is that?
High school.
High school starts at what age here?
9th grade.
9th. Okay. Yeah. Same as in Toronto. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then we also have an engineering track, and we have an affiliation with FAU's engineering program as well, a law track, and they do lots of competitions. And we have a new entrepreneurial and leadership and entrepreneurial program that we just started this year. So it's through these tracks that students can try, and you don't have to pick a track for 4 years. You can dabble. You can do all 4 years if you want.
And how many kids participate in this, would you say? I know it's not a number that you probably know off the top of your head, but is it is a percentage 10, 50, 80%?
I would say for each of the programs, we have anywhere from 70 to 120 students that are participating any given year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very popular. And we also have a really, really robust arts program, drama, art. So it's also students sometimes have to choose. There's only so many hours in the day.
What about athletics?
Fabulous athletics program. We have, all the main sports. We don't offer no hockey, but other than that,
I have to tell you, I've had conversations with Jill about this.
I heard,
and I thought she was joking at first. I'm like, don't tease. And she says, would you be a part of it? I said, I'm 100%.
Yeah, she shared.
And you have an amazing facility that just opened up next door that, during the school hours, I'm just saying,
we're looking into it.
Okay. Well, if you need any sort of consults,
Fabulous.
I'll volunteer my time gladly.
That's awesome.
I also have a vested interest in my son.
Of course.
Plus I love the ice. You can take the Canadian out of Canada, but you can't do the inverse.
I gotcha.
How long have you been the head of school?
It's my 8th year as head of school.
And how did you get into it?
Great question. So we moved.
Or should I say, why did you get into it?
Yeah. The why is a bigger question. So 18 years ago, we moved down to Florida, as I said earlier, and I was actually the first clinician and clinical social worker that the high school ever had with the 54 students that I mentioned. And I knew every single one of them like they were my own children. I then, 4 years later, was asked to step into the principal role of the high school. And I grew us to 98 students. At which point my predecessor tapped me and said, you really need to apply for my job. I'm retiring soon. I said, I don't know. I'm really happy here. This is a very happy, and the high school is it's a happy place. It's not like any other, I've worked in many other high schools, and it's such a unique space where every student knows every kid and they love them like their own child. And during those high school years, it's during that time that there's a lot of turmoil and complication in being a teenager. And I think we take care of each and every student like they're our own child, or allowing them to really flourish and become their best selves. So it was during that time that I was like, okay, I could be here till I retire, but this is an opportunity, the headship that was coming up that I needed. So I was asked to be on the search committee, and soon thereafter realized, I need to pull myself out of this and apply. A lot of people were saying, why aren't you applying? Get off the search committee. So I did, and I got the job. I was shocked when the committee brought me in and said it was a unanimous decision. I said, all right, come on, you guys are pulling my leg. I'm sure they were great candidates. I'd seen some of the resumes before I pulled out. And 8 years later, I can now understand the why. I think it's Florida, and Donna Klein in particular, is a really unique space with a really special community. And it's an incredibly diverse community, as I said earlier. And I think in order to take care of our families and our students the way we do, it takes somebody that understands not just the educational needs of our students, but the social and emotional diversity and complexity that come with each student and each family. And I feel really proud that we're always trying to take care of our families. We're not here to impose our views. We're very much here to hold our community so that it can be as diverse as it is and as healthy as it is.
What would you say to parents that are looking to move? Because we were on a wait list and we started this probably before we started anything else, because without the school, we weren't coming down. What would you tell parents now that are coming from different countries or different states, how to start the process, when to start the process? Like, what would you do if you were in their shoes and now you understand the landscape from both sides? You immigrated here, so you do understand, the challenges that come with that. I mean, you're already an American, but moving is moving. Okay. Moving countries brings us a new set of challenges, but what advice would you give people on how to do this and how to do this right?
So I think, Ronan, you and I did it right? You recently and me 18 years ago. I think allowing the school to really guide the where. I think that to find that, it's like finding the right spouse, right? You only want to do it once. You don't want to be, okay, well, maybe if this doesn't work. To me, for your children's sake, to find a school that meets your needs educationally, and if it's a Donna Klein or a school like a Donna Klein, social, emotional, and community. Once you find that, and I think that's, you'd first do the school research, and then you've got to find the place where you're going to live, obviously. I think
we did that right after we knew we were in school. Yeah. What's the closest house to fit the criteria of what we needed? Donna Klein, and we got it. Like, I couldn't, the peak of the market. But I tell people in real estate all the time, your house is not an investment. It is a lifestyle choice. Agreed. Right? Everything else that generates revenue, and we're not going to go on that tangent because I can speak to that for hours. Yeah. That is an investment. Your house is a lifestyle choice. It's something you decide to make based on how close you want to be, the house, the location, and all that stuff. But yes, sorry. So yes, the education. The education, then the home, and then everything else falls into place. Right. And I think right now the market is saturated. I think it's a difficult time to purchase. I will tell you that if people can't find homes, there's rentals, to maybe start there until you find a place, if the move needs to happen immediately. But I think the school has to be the driving force. Absolutely. And that's, it was a fluke. Like we didn't have much guidance, and we led with our hearts more than we did our minds, because if rationally we would have never made this sort of decision, because it didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense to leave a very comfortable environment. There were a lot of things that we didn't like about it, which lit the fuse. But from a rational perspective, I had this conversation this morning with my business partner out of Toronto, and he's kind of like hemming and hawing about it. And I said, look, if you're thinking about it this much, don't do it, because it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. It is. It's by far and away. It's also galvanized my relationship with my wife. But it, sometimes you got to go through fire in order to do that. But I grew up with a family where our parents on both sides, put us kids as primary and gave us everything we needed and more. We didn't lack for anything ever in our lives. They went without. We didn't. But I could tell you, slightly different perspective now is the kids are incredibly important, but your relationship with your spouse is, I would argue, to say, more important than that relationship with your kids. Because if you have a poor relationship with your spouse, you think your kids don't see it, don't feel it. They see it and feel it, all of it. Like when we came down here, we were stressed. We still are stressed, but different stresses. And our kids could feel it. We thought we were sheltering them from it. Wow. No. And you could feel it on them. But when they went to school, they were happy kids. Yeah. I have videos of them walking in, making friends. And it kind of gets me a little bit emotional about this, because we have had interactions with some of the teachers as they're dropping by or picking up the kids. And they'd say, Chloe did this today. Or, Kobe did this today. You guys are doing a good job. Grades are good. Things. And as parents, I find the ones that are the hardest on themselves are usually the ones that are doing the best job. Yeah. And we are constantly evaluating and thinking, are we doing enough? Are we doing this enough? And all that stuff. And I have a saying that keeps going all the time. Like right now, establishing businesses are a challenge. And my late father, especially towards the late stages of his illness, he used to say, any problem that you can fix with money isn't really a problem. Yeah. And that resonates. That's great advice. It's absolutely true. Because he says, when you're sick, you want one thing. when you're healthy, you want everything.
Yeah.
Right. So I carry that with me all the time.
It's great.
And I don't know what we would have done without you guys, but you have a different approach to education as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because, I really want to get your take on things, because it's also very similar to the way my wife leads her life.
Yes.
And I think it's very important, and it resonates through the students. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I obviously, as a clinician, as a clinical social worker, I've always looked at and always working with children. For me, kids of all ages have always been my sweet spot. I think I just love kids. And for me, it's about the whole child. To me, there's nothing more important than every single child being seen as a whole being, socially, emotionally, academically, and spiritually. And our school has we live and breathe that in everything that we do. For us, if a kid walks into school upset, we will handle that. And we can't expect them to sit in an English or a math class at that point, like what's going on, making sure that every child is taken care of before we can expect them to learn. And I think in most school environments, learning comes first, right? That's the end all be all. And I think that's our ultimate goal. But if a child's not okay socially and emotionally, and of course the spiritual piece plays a huge role as a Jewish day school, then the academics is the easy part. Each kid's going to show up the way they need to show up. So that to me is one important piece. The second piece that 8 years ago, we have a theme every year for our school. And to me, it's about living a whole life where kindness permeates everything you do, always assuming best intentions from others. And it's something that I try to teach those around me, but it's hard to teach. And one thing that we try to do with all of our administration and our faculty is that they see the beauty in each child, but that they're showing up with kindness, that they're showing up with love and respect. And I feel like if you can do that in a school environment, the rest is really quite easy. Of course, it's a tough task because people are human, including me, and you have bad days. And
sure.
But I think to me, it's really about allowing each child to flourish in the multidimensional,
So how do you do that in the classroom setting? How do you make sure that message resonates into and permeates into your teachers and your staff?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of trainings that we do with our teachers where in the mornings, the lower school has, they have circle time, and they talk about, how their night went, how their morning's going, before
daily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So every morning I love walking in and hearing some of the conversations that happen, and then they're ready to learn, like, okay, someone had a really tough night, or, they talk about the day. The teachers can usually sense what's going on.
Wow. That is so different from when I went to school.
Or when I went to school. Right. And middle school, it's through our guidance, department that they're doing a lot of lessons. And actually the guidance department also goes into the lower school. And if there's issues going on, they'll try to address them behind the scenes. Kids don't need to know that you're addressing something that maybe we're seeing from behind, but the middle school as well. And in the high school, we have an open door policy, which is also,
you have circle time in the high school?
I wish they have their own circle time. That would be very cute, actually. For the high school, it's really an open door policy with our guidance team. It's actually cool to go and hang out with your guidance counselor and just talk about your day, which is, again, an unheard of quality for any teenager, but it's a revolving door. It was like that when I was a guidance counselor, and it hasn't changed. I think it's really creating a program where kids know they have a place to go. They can talk to each other, that to be human is what they're supposed to be doing. By having a bad day, they're there to support each other. But I think it's really about the planning and programming that reinforces what's important. Obviously having enough time for the academics, but making sure that our kids are okay.
Talk to me about the academics and how Donna Klein compares to, let's say, the public school realm. If we use that as a benchmark, is it a little more, I don't know if aggressive is the right choice, but is there more work? Do you push the kids a little bit harder than you would in the public school setting? Not, Can you talk to the education piece?
Sure. So I think the education piece is very student specific. And we as a school we have a very individualized program where we really try to understand who each student is academically, and we try to put them in the right level for their ability. We actually recently spoke about a student who is getting like a 98 in a class, and we realized she was a very quiet kid. She's not being challenged enough, but we made sure that we pushed her to the right level.
How'd you do that?
So through conversation and talking to the team and realizing, wow, she needs enrichment where she's not getting enough, because again, some kids will start to act out because they're not challenged, and other kids are just going to quietly sit and do what they're expected to do. So I think it's really when the teachers really know their kids, they can tell, okay, this kid's getting pretty much perfect scores. Could they do more? So I think one unique quality of a Donna Klein education, actually, my middle child is a perfect example where she was placed. She was that quiet kid that was doing super well. Now I'm just remembering this, my 21-year-old. And she, her math teacher came to me in 6th or 7th grade and said, why is Sydney in this class? She needs to be in the honors level. I was like, I don't know. No one said anything. She got pushed, and sure enough, she continued on the highest level. So it's the teachers really understanding their students, knowing their abilities, and ensuring that they're getting the best out of each student. And I would say that that's probably the differentiator between us and another school. Our program is as strong as any school in the country, but if a student is challenged in a class, we'll also make sure that we're offering them the proper support. So it's both on the high end, on the low end, and anything in between, making sure that kid that's in that middle class is not getting lost. Are they struggling maybe? And they could be they maybe need to be in a lower class, or are they maybe not being challenged well enough? So I would say the program itself, the beauty also when you're not in a public school environment, in a private school, we can make choices on our curriculum. So it's also making sure that we're meeting, like our math curriculum, has changed a few times. There's no ideal program out there, but we can do whatever we want from a curricular standpoint to make sure that it's meeting the needs of our students.
Interesting. I think that, and I might be wrong, but I think that in Canada, even though they are private schools, I think the education piece is standardized.
Yes.
And I don't think that they can really sway away from that. And it's a big differentiating point here.
Correct.
I've also had conversations with people that their kids are in kind of like the middle school range. Mm-hmm. And they found that when they came here into the public school realm, they were behind on certain things coming in from Canada because just the level and clip in which it was being pushed. I also think that it has to do with in Canada, they removed something called the OACs. It was a grade 13. Mm-hmm. And when they took that down, I don't think they really adjusted the curriculum. But again, that's hearsay. I don't know specifics. My sister-in-law is a principal in Canada and speaks extremely highly of the curriculum and pushes it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's really interesting that you guys can kind of go at your own pace.
Yeah. And the other important piece is we have incredibly high standards. Our standards are probably higher than most schools, forget in the area, but most schools in general. We are accredited by an organization, it's the Florida Council of Independent Schools. And it's a rigorous accreditation process that we have to go through every 4 years. So they are looking at everything. They're looking at
it's like an education audit.
It's more than it's education, it's security, it's you name it. Anything that could enter, it could be safety for the students, pretty much anything that's important for an accrediting purpose. And I'm very involved in the FCIS. I'm actually going to accredit another school in a couple of weeks. So different leaders in different schools come together through the Florida Council of Independent School. They have a whole system and program, and it's basically an accrediting system to make sure that everyone is meeting the standards of the FCIS. And I'm very proud that during the 8 years we've been accredited twice, and we actually just got a perfect score, which is unheard of. The few things that they wanted us to work on were things that I said, put that on there so that we can make sure we're working on it. But
you're an extremely authentic human being. I've been around a lot of people my whole life through the real estate world and stuff like that. And I'd put myself in the category as not inauthentic, but I don't think I can be genuinely as authentic as you are. That's an incredible skill to have. And you probably have like a self-confidence about yourself that you've earned, and you work on that. That resonates through the teachers. You can actually see that you say it the way it needs to be.
Thank you.
The thing I find most interesting about that is how similar you are to my wife, and it used to drive me nuts about my wife. Because whereby I'll look at a situation as black or white, and I'll be like, okay, well, here's the quantitative numbers. The numbers are usually, and she's like, it's gonna work out, and you just don't put that out in the world and stuff like that. And you speak very similarly on those things.
So I think you need to meet my husband, who's been a CFO of multiple companies.
Yin and yang, right?
But I will tell you, talked about the importance of relationship and a strong marriage. And I truly will tell you, we've been married for 25 years. We're on a 26th year of marriage. It's that yin and yang that make it work. So I think what you were talking about earlier really resonates for me, in that it's about having that person in your life that, he's always the one saying, he's the one that pushed me to becoming the principal. I actually was not really that excited about it at first. I was like, all right, I'll try it out. Why not? And same thing with headship. He's like, you are applying, and if you get it, you're going to be amazing. And it's having that person in your life that can look at things in a much more black and white way with clarity. He's the one that actually first picked Donna Klein. And I said, all right, I don't know. I got to go check it out for myself. And
Sounds
I sat
very
in the
similar.
head of the school's office. I'm like, all right, this is the right place.
I could tell you just even during this podcast that, like, inside I feel a lot more emotional than I generally am, because I know how hard it is to make this move. And I know the challenges that we encounter every single day that I hope to authentically bring through this podcast so people can listen to it and hopefully take, a snippet of some value that they can do in their own journey. And I guarantee you that it's good to take this path and do this journey, because there's a lot to be learned from growth. But the school has been an incredible anchor for us. But before we even met Hillary and we stepped in through the doors, there is something there that I know a lot of Canadians think about, and it's things like guns. They think of Parkland. Can you talk about the security at Donna Klein and why is it necessary? Because it's not, Donna Klein isn't the only location, but you talk about the community.
Yeah. So we're really blessed as a school. So we are a K-12 school, and we're on a campus where we have the Jewish Federations on our campus, Jewish Family Services is on our campus, and we have 2 Orthodox day schools on our campus, 1 K-8 and 1 high school. We have Sinai Residences, which is an adult residential care facility. We have the JCC. So there's a lot of us on the campus. It's the largest Jewish community campus in the country. And therefore, it's a gated community. After 9/11, it became gated. And ever since, they've just been, they're the cutting edge, the way you should do security. This is the reason a lot of families have not only come, but stayed. You'd be hard pressed to find security as extensive and intense and thoughtful. There is a lot of Israeli thinking that goes in the kind of level of security. I can't speak to the details, as you can imagine, but I've been blown away when I've been given some details on the kind of security that we have on campus. We've actually, throughout the years, as you can imagine, being in such a large campus, as you're growing, there's always the thought of, are you going to build somewhere else? I remember saying to my board a few times, I said, do you have any idea what it would break our budget to just be able to cover security, the level of security that we have?
Because it's shared amongst the entire community.
Yes, it's a multi-layered infrastructure. So we have security guards, the ones that you would see, armed security guards that guard every single door. And in addition to that, there's more layers than you can imagine.
I have no doubt. And I can tell you that I think that that's something that is actually missing in Toronto. Thank God there's never been an incident, but I think that it's something that needs to be addressed. Security as a whole is becoming more rigorous, but not to this level.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It's fascinating. Where do you see, just like in terms of students, what more capacity does Donna Klein have to take on new students? Like, what's the number? Is it 1,000 students? Is it 800?
Yeah. So I had said earlier, like maybe 710, but we're looking to take over some more space on the campus. So we could probably go to like 750. 750 is probably our max number.
Right. So the kindergarten, you said there's 75 applicants for 60 seats. What do you do with the kids that don't get a spot? Do you give them other suggestions, or are they out on their own? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so it's a rolling admissions process. So it's kind of a fascinating process that we've already denied. I feel terrible, but we've already denied families, knowing the pool is a strong pool. So
Now, is it by first come, first serve?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is first come, first serve. But if there's a family, our standards, I think what it is that in the past, we probably accepted more students. When you have 60 spots and you know you only have 65 applicants, you're going to be a little bit more flexible in your ability to accept. Whereas if you have 60 spots and you already have 75, 80 applicants, you're able to be a little bit more, I guess, like universities. You have a larger pool. It allows you to be more selective.
When it comes to special needs, and I could tell you that as a student, for me, it was very difficult to sit in a class. I was ADHD, and for me, athletics was an outlet. And now I'm telling you, I'm self-diagnosed because, I mean, my grandmother politely coined as Spielkissentuches, as you probably know what that means,
I
right?
know that well.
But I was that kid. I couldn't sit in that classroom setting. When it comes to kids like me or other ones that have challenges or some support or exceptionalities, how do you guys address that in class?
Yeah, because of this incredibly individualized approach that we have, I think we do as good of a job as anyone can do. We can only do so much. We can't do magic, but we're able to, if a kid has, my son was one of them,
right? And
first grade and in second grade, they had, he sat in the back of the class, but he didn't have to sit. So he just stood, and it's about creating accommodations as long as it's not disruptive to the rest of the class. We're able to do that for our students. I think it's when it becomes a disruption to the rest of the class that obviously it's a different conversation with the family, but we're able to accommodate and adjust our expectations of, a kid doesn't have to be sitting for 8 hours during the day. It's okay for them to stand in the back of the class, especially as a first, second, third grader. And then as they get older, we actually now have wobbly seats so that they're sitting, but like the seat moves a little bit, and it's just part of the educational system, I think, has caught up with needs that kids have. And all of these are like normal, just the brain developing and kids trying to figure things out. And we also have standing desks in classes.
Oh, cool.
So really,
what about the sorry to cut you off, because you said standing desks. And I mean, I've seen people work through it. How have you guys kept up with technology?
We always try to be ahead, but it's impossible. So we do our best. So from day one, actually, back in the day when I was over in the high school, we were one of the first Google certified schools. Basically, if we find out about it, we think it's good for students, we go for it. So we currently have every single classroom has a smart board, a clear touch, so teachers can teach in a more dynamic way. We have our seating. We try to buy desks that are potted so that students can work in groups. Every student has their own computer. We really try to be as current as we can be, if not, hopefully a few steps ahead like we were back then. But it's pretty tough to get in front of technology is important in education.
I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your time. I'm grateful for the fact that I give you the most valuable thing in my life, and it's my children. And I know that they're going to be well fed. There's a lunch program, happy, exercised. I know they're outside a lot, in PE, and everything is a gamble. And when we're moving here, you still don't know. It's a gamble. You don't know how things are going to work out. You don't know what you're going to be tomorrow. But the things that we quote unquote gambled on and decisions we made, we've been incredibly blessed. So thank you so much for running the school. I hope to. There's a lot of other topics I want to extrapolate with you, so I hope to have conversations with you again in the future. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and talk to us. And hopefully people will get snippets of information. How can people contact Donna Klein if they have any questions?
I would say the best way is to go online. Just go to Donna Klein Jewish Academy or dkja.org. And our website actually says it all. There's lots of videos and lots of clips. There's anyone looking to apply, you can apply straight from our just get on our website and you can apply and then go through the process that way. But I'm also happy to speak to anybody. I've gotten many cold calls of families saying, I want to speak to the head of school. I want to hear a little bit more, from that perspective. So.
And I'm willing to do the same. If anybody wants to ask what our experience has been like and what our journey has been like, and I'll be more than glad to speak to anybody about that, because it really is an exceptional anchor for all the rest of the decisions. And there will be many. Yeah. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Bye.